Here we are, June 2020, and it's pretty obvious the United States is going through a pretty tough time. Now, if you're not interested in the astrological reasoning, I will give away the conclusion ahead of the explanation, which is to say that yes, it's because of tremendous planetary pressure, but it's also true that while some of this will continue into 2021, nevertheless, 2020 is by far the toughest year, and we simply have to get through it, get to the other side somehow in order to get some decent daylight. As to the reasoning, it's similar to looking at the chart of a person. When too many planets are involved, creating dynamic pressure by way of conjunctions, squares, and oppositions, yes, the person can grow, but also things can get really, really tough. And it's no fun at all, and there is no guarantee that it'll turn out well. So when you look at this chart, you see that every planet from Jupiter outward, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Eris, all six are involved in applying some really heavy pressure. Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, it would be in the 24, 25 degree range, opposite Mercury. Mercury is a very important planet in the US chart because it rules houses, signs 7 and 10, angular locations that are very important. The government, for one, up here. This would be allies of our country, but also in general, when you talk about relations, therefore people, you look to this house. So there's a lot of pressure on this Mercury from three big planets. And then Neptune is squaring Mars and moving into oppose itself next year. So that's another heavy influence, keeping in mind that Neptune moves pretty slowly, so you don't see these types of transits all that frequently. And then looking way out there to Eris, moves very, very slowly, which of course means you don't see it very often, but when you do see it, you see it for a long time. And that's what's happening to this Mercury with Eris and a long-term connection to it. And then finally Uranus, it's the one planet that is not doing a full square or full opposition. It's in a semi-square to Mars, and then a sesqui-square, which is like a square and a half to Neptune. And with Uranus being an 84-year orbit, semi-squares and sesqui-squares are quite noticeable. One can verify this from oneself in individual charts because the planet hangs around those degrees for a good year, a good solid year, or a little bit more, and one definitely feels the influence. So the situation is very turbulent in 2020, but what happens is in December, Saturn moves permanently into Aquarius, and Jupiter does the same thing, and that takes a lot of pressure off. The Pluto, Neptune, and Eris will continue applying pressure, but with these two in the next sign, things will definitely get better. Also, this semi-square, sesqui-square disappears because Uranus moves further into Taurus permanently, and so it no longer pressurizes the Mars. Now, as to the field of operations, the astrology is pretty graphic as well because pressure from this area here across to the 8th, the planets in Cancer, is the economic debacle. In fact, back in 2008, Pluto had just entered Capricorn, and we had to deal with a tremendous downturn. Jupiter was in Capricorn as well, and it's because that opposition triggers the money signs and therefore the economy of the country. And then the explanation for the pandemic, you would look to that house as well, the 8th for sure, but also to 6 and 12. And when you look to 6 and 12, Venus is not getting a ton of pressure right now, but Mars, the primary ruler of the 12th, definitely is through the Neptune. And if you look at Pluto as the second ruler of the 12th, it's also getting pressure because it's been involved in the conjunction of these three planets. So all of that is mirrored in the chart and accurately reflects what is happening. The Eris, as a long-term influence, this planet seems to be connected to female rising energy, for one, and this is why we're seeing more and more women in politics. This is one of the unintended consequences of the Trump approach to things. What he'll accomplish, among other things, on the positive side, is more women on the political scene, which I think is a very good thing. The other thing about Eris is that it's connected to raising the lives of those who have been left behind. So, since it's also connected to discord, we have to pay for these advances through short-term discord, which unfortunately with Eris, it could be years. But nevertheless, we're on the way, and it has to be considered a good thing. So bottom line with all this is I would urge everyone to hang in there. 2020 is a tough year for sure, but there is light and reward at the end of the tunnel.